dominant paradigm, bottom-up paradigm, development communication. The lesson deals with how polity, the state as a political entity, influences and governs every aspect of public life including media and communication. It is against this background the lesson tries to explain how centralized economies direct their policies of development and communication from top to bottom. The lesson also offers how such directed development is construed as dominant paradigm which influences every branch of media and communication. The lesson illustrates how such dominant practices permeate the communication leading to the development of a new branch of communication called as development communication. At the same time, the lesson informs the learners that compared to dominant paradigm, but the bottom-up paradigm or participatory paradigm has helped to promote the third world economies including India. The lesson thus tries to relate how development of Indian communication theory and models offered a promise to serve as bottom-up paradigm or participatory paradigm. It also deals with a few prominent schools of communication for development that shaped the current theory and understanding of development communication. To show how Western models of communication and media served as nodal centers of dissipating dominant paradigm to the third world countries. To show how Indian communication theory and communication models offer alternative to dominant paradigm imposed on India from global northwest. The dominance of a powerful coalition between the state, the elitist capitalist and the scientific technical expert is defined as dominant paradigm. Melkote and Steeves 2013. This definition has drawn its basis from the Renaissance in Europe. As everybody knows that Renaissance was a fervent period of European cultural, artistic, political and economic rebirth following Middle Ages during 14th and 17th century. Renaissance marked the ushering in modernity in the West, which encouraged science as the arbiter of truth, contesting the Catholic Church dominance over mankind. It has promoted humanistic ideas. The capitalist elite, the state bureaucrat and the scientist were more dominant factors ever since. Thus the modern states, bureaucrats, elites in positions of power and scientists, technocrats using science have taken over the responsibility of deciding what is truth and what is not. Melkote and Steeves described this as development machine. Using this development machine as a tool, every state aspiring to become modern has made momentum to enforce development.
I am aware that I must have given you much cause for irritation, Your Excellency. I hope it will not stand between us as men.
Mr. Gandhi, I am instructed to request your attendance at an all-government conference in London to discuss the possible independence of India.
Nandi posited that coercive power of governments to control their populations or wage war against others comes from the application of sophisticated scientific method. Nandi argued further that what sets the present development discourses apart from that of the past is that the state has entered all areas of life of the citizens and set up total systems for social and political engineering based on the theory of development and progress. The dominant paradigm development is inseparable from the concept of modernity, says Ulrich. According to him, starting point is the assumption that unremitting diligence, constant progress in the production of goods, the unbroken conquest of nature, the restructuring of the world into the predictable technology and organizationally manipulable processes will automatically and simultaneously produce the conditions of human happiness. The important premises that argued in favor of dominant paradigm are outlined here. Rationality and progress have become synchronous with economic growth. A higher standard of living is fixed as a target to achieve considering certain indicators such as gross domestic product, per capita consumption, gross national product, etc. The Western industrial progress and production have to be followed as indispensable guidelines. The past histories of third world countries have been treated as irrelevant to the path of modernization. The consequences of dominant paradigm have been quite negative more often than not. The negation of the past histories and cultural environments of third world countries and straight imposition of the Western concepts of development as one jacket fit for all has resulted in lopsided development in global south and east. In the process, local narratives and cultural meanings and social systems have become valueless. Friedberg and Hetney lamented that the Western world view has been presented as the world's view, claiming universal validity. All the colonized of penetrated countries stigmatized as inferior in culture, religion or race. Western man did not bother to listen to the African shaman, the Indian guru or the Chinese scholar. Thus one would find an approach which flows from center to periphery in regard to implementing a state policy which is nothing but an imported Western economic, political and scientific technology. Therefore, this is often referred to as top to bottom approach or dominant paradigm. It percolates from the center of the government to the citizens at bottom. Individuals will have no choice but implement these policies. After all hue and cry settled down on the dominant paradigm, scholars across the globe have come up with alternatives for development. Braidotti et al. Called for locally sustainable lifestyles, participating democracy and recovery of dominated people's subjugated knowledge. Wang and Dissanayake argued for protection of nature and culture. They defined development as a process of social change which has its goal the improvement in the quality of life of all or the majority of people without doing violence to the natural and cultural environment in which they exist, and which seeks to involve the majority of the people as closely as possible in this enterprise, making them the masters of their own destiny. Alternative approaches to the development of third world countries are pluralistic and offer new horizons of meaningful development. They are outlined here as equity in distribution of information and other benefits of development, active participation of people at the grassroots, independence of local communities to tailor development projects to their own objectives, integration of old and new ideas, traditional and modern systems, the endogenous and exogenous elements to constitute a unique blend suited to the needs of a particular community. This is a people-driven mode of development. People decide what they require for their development. The people at the grassroots level create an ambience in which they themselves play a direct role. The counter discourses to dominant paradigm acknowledges the point that development takes root in combination of both material and human consciousness of the people who are to act as the active agents of social transformation in their respective societies. At a most specific level, argues Sinha, it rests on indicating intelligent and proaction of people in order to set the goals of development and its subsequent implementation. He further adds that more specifically in this people-sourced approach to development, the stress is on popular mobilization and participation and on decentralization as opposed to delegation of power. Therefore, the counter discourse for dominant paradigm calls for active engagement of people at grassroots level, and the people cannot any longer be treated as passive recipients. The bottom-up approach thus allows for a quality change in the lives of the people. In the counter discourse, development does not become, argues Sinha, a catchword or a political slogan. On the other hand, it seeks to make way for the people to exercise their informed choice. This approach thus allows a large-scale participation of people at grassroots level. It reminds us the statement of Rajani Kothari on the role of communication in developing countries. He says that a communication process that contains forces of backlash and promotes forces of transformation and survival. In such an approach, the clash between dominant paradigm and its counter-offense has its source in the opposing norms and value systems of contesting visions. Thus, the counter-offense to the dominant paradigm also involves the issue of power and calls for a transformative thrust. It can be summarized on the lines of Harold Laswell's magic bullet theory. Who produces, who distributes what, to whom, by what channels, with what intentions and with what impact. Ever since a resolution to achieve Millennium Development Goals 2000 is drawn, both the developing nations and the developed nations continue to strive hard to achieve them. In the process, both the UNICEF and the World Bank have envisaged a wider role for the media and how communication can perform as a connecting agent or a tool among various sections of the society of any country. Political processes are communication processes not only through formal elections but also through the ongoing dialogue between people and their government and the shaping of their public agendas. Communication is central to good governance, where the governments are responsive, accountable, and capable of fulfilling their functions with the active involvement and cooperation of civil society. The fabric of the civil society is an interwoven network of communication or media, interpersonal, informal, and cultural processes, as well as through formal institutions and official channels. Such society is characterized by the vibrancy and how the quality of networks between individual groups, institutions, and organizations, and the social capital they create. Social capital can be understood as a trust and respect all these players develop through a concerted action. Thus, information and communication are recognized as fundamental to the development of a society or a state. In India, several socio-economic and energy-based reforms, political groups call them as populist schemes in terms of journalistic parlance, have begun to creep in to Indian society since 2004, nearly 2 decades back, and are still continuing. Therefore, it should be viewed as development for the welfare of society that is sustainable through various platforms of communication, including mobile, ICT, radio, television, and film consecutively. Sustainable development can be defined as a society competing for available resources without exhausting them for future generations. It offers immense opportunities for people to access more information and knowledge which they use to improve their lives. Today, applying through online by calling in information from a toll-free number for various state and central schemes has become a common phenomenon in India. For each sector of economic and social development that includes medical, health, agriculture, and marketing and insurance, both the state and central governments have brought in different toll-free numbers. Similarly, every service sector, be it private and government, has its own toll-free number. At manual level, the communication flows happen through different hierarchies in India and in the federal state of Telangana. Beginning with the office of the district collector and the magistrate, the communication flows go downward, top to bottom, and reach the gram seviks, village assistants, revenue assistants, sarpanch, village heads, village ward members, anganwadis, paramedical and para-sanitation staff, etc., through regional development officers, mandal development officers, block development officers, etc. They in turn conduct meetings with the people through their peer groups, leaders, community heads, and women representatives, and inform the people about the newly introduced programs from the government side, be them from the state of Telangana or from the central government. In the process, you find several paradigms of communication become operational. Some scholars say that there is SMCR model, which implies the people as audiences who were to be influenced one way, top to bottom. This unilateral communication flow came in for sharp criticism for its potential to turn into cultural imperialism. In the second step, the concerned heads at various levels hold meetings with the public either directly or through their community leaders or people representatives, giving way for Paul Rogers felt a two-step flow of communication. In the next step, a discussion happens among the target groups or audiences in terms of interpersonal communication, leading to participatory communication or horizontal communication. Thus, in a developing country like India, the development communication does not follow any single track or model of communication. Multiple models of communications operate at different times in a concerted manner. Thus, both the network communication as well as human communication through interpersonal communication flows let the development process spread among the people and with their own participation attain the target levels for each specified periods. At its heart, the development, if it is to be sustainable, must be a process that allows people to be their own agents of changes, to act individually and collectively using their own ingenuity and accessing ideas, practices and knowledge in the search for the ways to fulfill their potential. Srinivas and Steves viewed that communication and information are persuasive tools that can assist in the modernization process. They described the marketing and selling of communication and information as persuasive marketing strategy. Surveys and Bley also outlined main challenges for the field of communication for development. A. Differences between good governance and good government and the issues of transparency and accountability. B. The complexity of the participatory concept. C. Participation taking place at different levels. D. The reinforcement of independent and pluralistic media. E. Not making full use of potential radio. F. Enabling policy and resources. G. Implementing a legal and supportive framework favoring the right to free expression and the emergence of free and pluralistic information systems. H. Building alliances. New global partnerships are necessary with the media development agencies, universities and governments. Eminent economist and Nobel laureate Amartya Sen described such free access to communication as real freedoms. According to Sen, the capacity for people to participate in a diverse range of decisions that affect them and to enjoy specific functional aspects that constitutes a healthy life. Concentrating more resources on fostering better communication and information processes among people and between people and governments will increase the power and ability of individuals to take a meaningful part in debates and decision-making processes that are relevant to their lives. In short, information and communication processes are fundamental to sustainable development and lies at the heart of change. The role of communication in sustainable development. Thus, development communication refers to the use of communication to facilitate social development. It engages all the relevant stakeholders and government officials, establishes conducive environments, assesses the risks and opportunities, and facilitates exchange of information and communication to generate a positive change which constitutes sustainable development. Cabral expanded the definition of communication development to a scientific realm by saying that it is the art of science of human communication applied to the speedy transformation of economy of a country and its masses from poverty to dynamic state of economic potential. According to World Bank, the development communication is the integration of strategic communication in development projects based on the clear understanding of indigenous realities. The UNICEF viewed it as a two-way process for sharing ideas and knowledges using a range of communication tools and approaches that empower individuals and communities to take actions to improve their lives. World Bank tends to espouse and promote the title development communication, while the UNICEF uses communication for development. While both pertain to the same concept and the phenomenon, and difference is nothing but a jugglery of words in English. The concept of welfare state is to protect and promote the economic and social well-being of its citizens, while the term protection connotes a provision of social infrastructure such as health care and prevention of discrimination on the basis of caste, color and creed. The term promotion connotes the allotment of the state resources through redistribution of income gained from taxes for the education, vocation and employment of the deprived and underprivileged. The redistribution of the state resources implies offering subsidies, providing ration, free education and creating avenues for loans at low interest. Thus, the concept of welfare state connotes mixed economic structure of the state as well. The development of a society is also measured in terms of its society's ability to offer an empowerment. Srinivas and Steves defined development in terms of empowerment. Lerner and Rogers have resorted to the paradigm of modernization to define what they considered as development. Critical perspectives of modernization, theories that were developed in the West and expected the East to blindly follow suit, constituted another paradigm. In fact, this is very crucial and critical part of defining the development or empowerment that is more pertinent to both sides of the hemisphere. The liberalization of paradigm is the third paradigm of development, empowerment, which originated from the Brazilian educator Paulo Freire. It is among the most well-known proponents of development as liberation, the basis of which is liberation theology. It prioritizes personal and communication liberation from oppression as the key to empowerment and self-reliance that is the goal for development. Eminent scholars from the West such as Jan Servais and Heinz et al. Advocate this model of development communication. The development communication theory initially placed its focus on the people as passive audience, which was not participatory. This gave the notion that development was being, like the developed countries, one-way influential. After that, the aspect of feedback was added. Then communication was said to be horizontal. Today, development communication is about working for local development and creating opportunities. Its objective is to uplift the quality of life of people, not only economically, but also socially, culturally, politically, etc. By using the tools of development communication, the theory later became known for its use in the developing and underdeveloped countries. The concept of participation was later added, which paved the way for model to be used for social change, development communication and democratic participant communication theory. In order to make the development communication meaningful, it has to meet the following criteria: fundamental commitment to the people-centric and people-driven development, problematization rather than quick fix solutions, empowerment, capacity building, reciprocal learning and collaborative networks, free flow of locally relevant information or critical reflection and deliberation, strengthen the local level decision making. The foregoing bottom-up development model as a counter-reference to the top-to-bottom dominant paradigm has offered enough space for the rural arts or folk arts for its involvement on a larger scale to spread messages of development among folks. The visual arts, besides music, dance, drama, have thus become central to the development communication. This course has thus immense potential in transforming its learners as rural artists, playing a key role in development communication through portrayal of rural India's needs and its glory. Various schools of development communication arose in response to challenging and opportunities in individual countries. Magnejo broke the field into 6 schools. The Bretton Woods School was originally dominant in international literature. The others were the Latin American, Indian, African, Las Banos and participatory schools. The School of Catholic Church, though not an academic school in the real sense, the Church has been conducting development communication for many decades. The Catholic Church's social teachings and moral norms parallel those of social development. For example, an encyclical written in 1981 by the Pope Leo XIII critiqued social ills and promoted the Catholic doctrine on work, the right to property, the principle of collaboration instead of class struggles as the fundamental means for social change, the rights of the weak, the dignity of poor and rich, the perfecting of justice through charity, on the right to form professional associations. The importance of engagement for social transformation and development is also asserted in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which states that as far as possible citizens should take an active part in public life. The manner of this participation may vary from one country or culture to another. As with any ethical obligation, the participation of all in realizing the common good calls for continually renewed conversion of the social partners. Moreover, Gaudium et Spes, commonly referred to as the Magna Carta of the Catholic Church's teaching on human dignity, states, to satisfy the demands of justice and equity, strenuous efforts must be made without disregarding the rights of the persons or the natural qualities of each country to remove as quickly as possible the immense economic inequalities which now exist and in many cases are growing and which are connected with individual and social discrimination. The involvement of many organizations and individual members of the Catholic Church in highlighting the plight of the needy and reaching out to the disadvantaged through works in education, health, livelihood projects, among others, serves as a concrete example of church that communicates a transformative and life-changing messages. The Bretton Woods School of Development Communication paralleled the economic strategies outlined in the Marshall Plan, the Bretton Woods System and of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund in 1944. The little used name served to differentiate the original paradigm from other schools that evolved later, leading theorists including Daniel Lerner, Wilbur Schramm and Everett Rogers. Due to his pioneering influence, Rogers was referred to as one of the founding fathers of development communication. The Latin American School. The Latin American School of Development Communication predates the Bretton Woods School, emerging in 1940s with the efforts of Colombia's Radio Chutatanja and Bolivia as Radios Minerals. They pioneered participatory and educational approaches to empowering the marginalized. In effect, they served as the earliest models of participatory broadcasting efforts around the world. In the 1960s, Paulo Freire's theories of critical pedagogy and Miguel Sabido's Enter Educate method became important elements of the Latin American Development Communication School. Other influential theorists including Juan Diaz Bordinevi, Luis Ramiro Beltran, Alfonso Gumicio Dagran. In the 1990s, technological advances facilitated social change and development. New media outlets emerged, cable TV reached more regions as the growth of local communication firms paralleled in the growth of major media corporations. The Indian School organized development communication in India began with rural radio broadcasts in the 1940s. Broadcasts adopted indigenous languages to reach larger audiences. organized efforts in India started with community development projects in the 1950s. The government, guided by socialist ideas, and politicians started many development programs. Field publicity was employed for person-to-person communication. The radio played an important role in reaching the masses because literacy was low. Educational institutions, especially agricultural universities, through their extension networks and international organizations under the United Nations umbrella, experimented with development communication. Non-governmental organizations relied on close interpersonal relations among communicators. Communication from the government was more generic and unidirectional. So-called public information campaigns were government-sponsored public fairs in remote areas that presented entertainment along with information on social and developmental schemes. Villagers engaged in competitions to attract attendees. Public and private organizations sponsored stalls in the main exhibition area. Development agencies and service goods providers also attended. Some state governments employed this model. Community radio was used in rural India